Hello everybody, in today's video I will be breaking down 4 tree designs, showing you how to build them and all the techniques I used, so you can not only make variations of these 4 trees, but also design your own. So, without further ado, I got some trees to show you, let's get right into it. Breaking it down, this is actually really simple. The trunk is just a couple of the dinosaur tail pieces. I don't really know actually what this piece is, but very simple trunk, and on it I attach these ball spheres, which if I take apart, they are built really in an interesting way. The dishes are connected on 4 sides, so you have 4 connected dishes. If I fully take it apart, you can see you connect the dishes on those 4 sides, and then you just have to alternate the dishes, so you want to make sure you have 2 on the outer layer. With other things in the Travis brick, it can make it quite difficult to get them all inside and not have it explode, but I really like this kind of ball technique. If you are going to use it, I would recommend using green studs like you see here, because you'll occasionally catch a glimpse of the color through the hole in the dish, and making it green does look a lot better. I think although stacking them up like this does work, just making a bigger sphere shape would probably ultimately look better, but you'd have to find some piece to make that with, and I have yet to find any that would work well. The second tree is pretty much my favorite tree of this video. I will say the final tree is a little bit ahead on my list. Now this conifer, pine, cedar type tree that is in this case in a snowy biome is a really interesting design using these fern pieces, and it took me a really long time to come up with. Starting with the top, I used this lipstick piece or candle wick piece for the very top just to add a little bit more of a point, and I think that works really well, especially if you have one of these like rubber ones with the curved tip. Works really well. Then I stacked some ferns on top of each other. It ends up coming off in this whole section, and I stacked 7 in one stack, and you kind of just, if you're going to make multiple, you're gonna have to change it up a little bit, so don't go piece by piece for this build. You'll kind of just have to see what works for you, but I stuck 7 is what worked for me, 7 ferns on one of the 5 long rods that has the like extra little bit on the bottom there. And then on that, this is where it gets really, really complex, because for me I needed to fill a gap, and I ended up using 2 ferns stacked on a wand, and I just stuck it into the top of these ferns. And it also, this adds a little bit of a kind of Y or split in the tree, and I think that looks really good, and it was not on purpose, so that just turned out for the best. Now this part is probably the worst part to build. it is really irritating. It is these 4 sections, which are all pretty simple. It is just two two fern stacks with a stud in between, and then on those you'll want to put a stud and a 1x1 plate, so you get this kind of little gap. Now, for the rubber band, it is not necessary to use this exact rubber band. I believe any of them will work. The smaller size, you won't be able to double up. It might be small enough to hold all 4 together tightly, but I'm not 100% sure. So I would recommend going with whatever size rubber band this is. It's the one from Poe's X-Wing, so it works really well and is really necessary for this design. You will need a rubber band. You also don't necessarily have to use Lego rubber band. The next 2 layers of the tree are identical, and this is the layer I would probably recommend stacking a couple or few times if you want to make the tree taller, or if you want to make it shorter, just use one. This layer is also pretty annoying to put together because it uses 4 loose fern pieces, and they have a round tile with the bar on it, and then the stud with the hole to give it a little more real estate for the other ferns, which are on this tree limb piece. It's pretty common in Lego sets, and it is nice for trees, actually. The layer is pretty simple and pretty easy, and I connected it to another 5 long rod with a stud on the end, and this layer will act as pretty much a connector for that previous top section and the lower sections. Now, any modification to this tree, and you will need to change up the rod you use and kind of how you connect each layer, so keep that in mind that you will probably need to do some modifications. The final layer is actually 2 technically, because you have to get each layer bigger as you go down. The layer at this point needed to have 2 ferns on 8 different sides, and as you can see, it turned out as more of a square, which I'm not the most happy about this layer, but I still think it works really well. And how it is built is the bottom layer uses a Travis brick with these 2 long rods and these clips in them, which attach to a stud and 2 ferns. Then on top of that, of course connected by a rod, is one of these Technic pieces. I have no idea what it's called, but it has 4 bars coming out of it, and this like sort of Technic axle hole, and you want to connect these flat clips on the bottom with a stud, and then the 2 ferns. The final part of this tree is the trunk. Now, I kind of failed, I'm gonna be honest, with this trunk design. I wanted to use these rods, but at the end, once I got the all the leaf layers on, it kind of was falling apart. I would recommend, because the ferns cover the trunk so much, just going with something pretty simple. You can go with Travis bricks with tiles and stuff on each side. You can kind of just be creative with the trunk on this design, because most of it will be covered and hidden from the view. Okay everybody, so although this is the least complicated tree design itself, I made the rest of this build ultra complicated. I not only leaned the rockwork back, leaned the border back, but I also made some really complex rockwork and put these vines in it, which took me 2+ hours to make, and that's just for the vines. Just putting these 3 leaf pieces in. If I show you the back of this build, it is just a mess, and I don't even want to look at it. Now, leave a like on this video, and let me know down in the comments below if you want to see a rock tutorial. I know a few people out there really do want to see one. And getting into the tree itself, this design is pretty simple. I probably don't even need to break it down. It's just connecting a lot of the, if I zoom in, you can see it's connecting a lot of these clip bar holder pieces with various twig-like pieces. I even used a pirate leg here. Just think of the most random pieces: hands, hot dogs, wands, these teeth, skeleton legs. Just think of really random pieces in brown that are around this scale, and just start throwing them together and connecting them in various ways, and you will come out with a product that looks like a very dead, kind of branchy, cliffside desert tree. I'm actually using this kind of tree in my Imperial Refinery mock. As you can see, it is somewhat fragile and quite illegal most of the time. I have broken 3 of these clips already making these trees, so I would, if you do care about your pieces enough, I wouldn't make this tree. It is usually I usually use brown, and brown is notorious for being fragile, and using illegal clip techniques with fragile pieces isn't the smartest. The bonus technique for this one will actually be these vines, because I do want to show people how to build these if you do want to build them. It is actually really simple, it's just really, really annoying, and if you're going with anything that isn't kind of sloping backwards, so if you're going with an inverted type of rock work, this probably won't work very well, because the way this is built is you just want one structural leaf at the bottom, usually with some kind of clip piece that it connects to, and then a ton of them stacked on top of it, and it makes kind of a ladder, pretty much, and a self-supporting system of these 3-leaf pieces. You can also use the other 3-leaf piece and then mix in some whips for kind of rooty branches. And I used various different pieces. I used the flat clip, I used the clip bar holder, I used lightsaber hilts, I used some of the like vertical clip piece, pretty much any small connector piece you can think of, connect it to the 3-leaf piece, and then stick it through your rock work, and it, as you can see, doesn't hold in very well usually, but you could spend even more time making it secure, which, props to you if you do pull that off. I would love to see that, because this took so long already. Either way, if you do use this technique, I would recommend kind of layering them and getting a really solid base kind of ball, and then just stacking them on top of each other one after another, and getting kind of a layered vine. Also, you will have to build the rock work with this in mind, but not really be able to build it at the same time because of how fragile it is. You're just gonna have to redo it anyways. This right here is my favorite tree design of the video. It's this birch / aspen tree. I just knocked it over. It is really fragile, and there are a ton of cool techniques in this tree, and I will fully break it down right now. Starting off with all these leaf panels, they are pretty much just a stack of any yellow / orange piece I could get my hands on, connected to these white leaf pieces. And so you can see I used hair, I used small animals, minifig accessories, all kinds of little rounded tiles. The corner rounded tiles are really nice for this because you can attach them to the bottom of these leaves. And don't underestimate any piece for this. You can use pretty much anything. I used a duck, as well as so many hair pieces, it's crazy. A ton of teeth, all kinds of stuff. Now, if I get rid of all the leaves, it becomes a whole lot less messy and a little bit easier to see the branch techniques. Now, for this type of tree, I had to add in the kind of black dots every once in a while. If you were to make this out of like brown, or if you didn't want to add the black dots, it is much simpler because you don't have to think about spacing them out correctly. But if you do, just kind of every once in a while. For this, I kind of used these Technic cylinders or these Technic connectors for the base spacing of them, and I think that works really well. Starting at the top with the techniques, a lot of this is kind of the same as the previous tree, and it's just a lot of different clip pieces connected together. And the technique that really saved this tree design was this skeleton arm. These skeleton arms, if I focus it on the arm, fit super nicely into these Technic connectors, and the really cool thing about them is you can angle it really nicely, and it is really stable. Like, you can put a decent amount of weight on this. This particular design uses some pretty light techniques. Like, all these leaves are pretty heavy, but they aren't too heavy. If you were to use a lot more leaves and make it a lot more bushy, you would need some slightly stronger techniques, and probably would just want to make the base a lot bigger. I went with a pretty small scale, especially since I didn't have any large white pieces for the base. Now, this is all pretty much just the same, just stack up a lot of white pieces, incrementally getting smaller. Pretty much every section either get smaller or stay the same size. Try to never go bigger than the previous section. It looks really bad most of the time. Unless it is a split, then in that case, definitely keep it the same size, and at that split point, you can shrink it a little bit and make it kind of a combined size. The base for this tree is probably the most complex and interesting part. It actually connects to the platform using one of those rounded tiles with the rod, and it goes into this hand here, which was really annoying to get on there because you have to actually connect it all, like, you have to connect the hand to the tile and then that to the cylinder, so it took me like 3 tries to get that right. Very irritating. But this really relies on these two white rubber bands that go around it. They hold on various different pieces, this bone, the tooth piece, rods, another larger bone, and then once you get out down at the very bottom, try to think of anything that can kind of clip on and make a root. So in this case I used hands, even this arm, which is my favorite one, looks really nice. Also things like the unicorn horn or drill bit, whatever you want to call this, and teeth, amazing for this particular color and design, where the roots are thin, not too thin. And overall, this makes a really nice tree. Although fragile and very time consuming to make, it would just look amazing in pretty much any mock. You could use this in some kind of town, it would look amazing. You could use this with a combination of different techniques for leaves, or you can use these leaves on different tree techniques. This tree definitely has the most variety of techniques and allows for a lot of different trees to be built with the techniques. Anyways, that is going to wrap up this video. I spent a lot of time, energy, and effort, as well as you can see, pieces on making this video, and I would really appreciate it if you gave it a like, subscribed to my channel, and commented your opinions on what was your favorite tree, anything I could improve on for my next tutorial, as well as ideas for additional trees. I have a design for a pine tree I'm working on, and I hope to make another tree tutorial at some point, and I will include that, but I will need at least 3 more ideas for trees, so give me those down in the comments below. I will say, think outside the box on MPU, aka nice parts usage. It is so amazing once you get to a point where you can pretty much turn any piece into a tree or a piece of a tree. It's really relieving and at the same time kind of irritating, because you look at every piece and see a tree. So that's where I'm at right now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.